one another. Back on April 1st, we pivoted to doing these virtual events, which we've been producing nonstop since then. We are coming up on our 100th live cast, and we've done countless private roundtables. And recently we launched this new format, which are custom private events for our marketing community. We recently did one for McAfee. Today we've got one for you guys at Bose. We're coming up on Mattel and Pepsi and others. And we're excited to be here and bring you some great content, which will be followed by a labs, demo, and innovation day. So just one or two quick housekeeping notes. I would make two suggestions. First of all, on the screen in front of you, this is our Cisco WebEx platform. I would suggest you move the view into grid view. So if you hover in the top right corner of your screen, you can switch over from active speaker to grid view. When we have multiple people on the virtual stage at the same time, it makes for the best experience. And then similarly, there should be a 3 dots icon on the bottom of your screen. You can click on that and open the Q&A widget, which we allow for, at the tail end of each session, 5 to 10 minutes of audience questions. So again, we highly recommend you do that if you want to ask questions to our speakers. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our event chair and our hosts. Again, a big thank you to Marissa as well for everything that she's done. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Pat, if you want to say a couple welcome remarks before we kick off today's program.
Sure. Well, thank you, David. Thank you, Brand Innovators. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. It's a real privilege and honor for us at Bose to host you all. We've been pretty active in the Brand Innovators community for some years now. Joining the different events. They were often physical and in real life up through 2019, and it's been great. As I was just saying to David, Brand Innovators has done an amazing job. The word is overused in terms of pivoting on the fly, going from a highly physical, in real life event-based practice to putting it on virtually. So to have this opportunity today to kind of be joined by so many diverse and inspiring kind of leaders and experts from other brands and other industries is a real treat for us here at Bose. And I'm really excited, and I know everyone else here at Bose is excited to engage and learn more. And excited to have this session today. And rest assured, we'll pay it forward another day, and hopefully be able to kind of share the gospel with other colleagues and brands in the States. So, thanks to everyone for joining. Really honored and psyched to have you all, and can't wait to learn more and get some new ideas as a result.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Pat. I hope we caught that for our testimonial, but that was great. And I hope next year at some point we'll be back at in Massachusetts with you guys, on the mountain for another physical event. But in the meantime, we appreciate you guys hosting us here virtually. And I'd like to, again, we can bring up our first session. We've got a fantastic group today. So I'd like to welcome Rosalind Emerson, the Director of Channel Marketing at Chobani, Katie Vaughn, the Director of Supply Direct Marketing at Walgreens, and Mike Swart, the VP Head of Shopper Marketing for Viacom CBS. So we've got our first panelist, where we're going to be talking about things like shopper marketing, channel marketing, and how brands and their retail partners can work together to market, to co-market to the end consumer. So again, this is one of the topics that we got from you guys as something that's really interesting and timely and relevant. So hopefully it's a compelling session and you learn something. And welcome, Roz, Katie, and Mike.
So thank you. Good morning. Good morning. And thank you for the warm welcome. We have a great panel today to talk about channel marketing and retail co-marketing. And as was mentioned, we are fortunate to have participation from both a retailer and a CPG manufacturer who have generously agreed to share their experience, from which I have no doubt we'll all gain perspective about our own business. So without further ado, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Mike Swart. I'm the head of shopper marketing at Viacom CBS. Where we leverage world-famous IP like CNET, Nickelodeon, MTV to create content and experiences that drive transactions at the retail level. It's my pleasure to introduce Katie Vogt and Roz Emerson. Katie's the Director of Supplier Direct Marketing at Walgreens, and Roz, of course, is the Director of Channel Marketing at Chobani. So
hi. I couldn't hear it because it kind of broke up a bit, but I guess I'm supposed to be introducing myself. So I'm Roz Emerson. excited to be here and have the opportunity to talk a bit with each of you, but more importantly, connect with Katie and Mike. And at Chobani, I lead channel marketing. And channel marketing within the very specific channels that I work within is a really unique and interesting way to go to market, because we're marketing from a true B2B2C perspective. And that's what's really interesting. And I'm excited to kind of share some of that methodology with you all today. So thank you for having me.
And then, hi everyone, I'm Katie Vogt. I lead supplier direct marketing at Walgreens. Like Mike said, I'm excited to be here as well. So what my team does is we lead conversations with all of our supplier partners around how we can leverage Walgreens first-party data, our owned properties, our stores, to message to our customers in a personal way. So we build annual plans and marketing approaches with all of our supplier partners to drive growth for both brands as well as Walgreens.
I think Mike might be having some technical difficulties, but that's okay because we had a practice run. And Katie, how about we just get right into it for the sake of time?
Let's do it.
All right. So it looked like one of the great questions was about what would be considered like a best practice if we wanted to each kind of share what has been sort of a best practice that we've had within our respective roles and areas of opportunity and business. So Katie, maybe you want to start first and then I'll kind of jump on for you.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I mentioned this in my intro, but our best practice model is really to create joint plans that are founded on joint customer objectives. So we start every year mapping out the year in terms of what are the big moments for a brand and for Walgreens, and then what are the customer objectives that we want to achieve during those big moments. So one specific example with a large cosmetics manufacturer would be if they have a hot promotion running in September and October, which is happening right now, what customer objective do we want to drive during that time period? And what we landed on was we want to focus on bringing back lapsed customers that we lost during COVID from this brand and from Walgreens, and really message them about the value that's available at Walgreens during this time, leveraging our first party data to reach those right customers.
Awesome. Yeah.
So Roz, do you have an example from the brand perspective of maybe when you've done something similar?
Yeah, absolutely. And Katie, I love this idea of shared values and shared objectives, because that's absolutely our approach from a brand perspective, is that, yes, we have sort of our needs that we want to try to gather and get from the execution, but it's so important to make sure that you connect with a potential retailer, or let's say within the areas that I've also flexed within a brand. It could be a restaurant or a hotel or a drugstore, where it's where's the shared, where's the commonality, and where is sort of the sharing from a demographic perspective too. So it's this idea of really laddering up and connecting and bringing something forward. A great example of that is this idea of we had a partner who had a lucrative rewards program, particularly within the gas space. And because we also wanted to get connected with that very specific targeted group, we identified clear objectives that we both would get out of this opportunity. And what we did was, first, we sold it into the actual buyer, right? That B2B component, and really showed them the benefit of it. And then we collectively worked together to build out the B2C component of it. And it really resonated. It was the first time they did it, and it was the first opportunity that they had to not only market within the store, but then also market within the digital footprint, and then as well as market at the actual pump. And so it was a really great opportunity for both of us. And absolutely, Katie, it started with those shared need states that we have from both of the partners.
Yeah, it's music to my ears as a retailer that it's not just about necessarily growing the brand, but it's about growing the category and growing the retail as well, because it really is, tide rises all boats. Darn, we even talked through that line yesterday and I already forgot it. But with the shared objectives, it really does benefit both of us to not focus on switching behaviors or just shifting from one brand to another, about what's really right for the customer and what will grow the category as well as the brand.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, gang, did I make it back on?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm so glad we got such strong marketers here to carry the conversation. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being nimble. I don't know, maybe you got into this already, but Katie, I do know that one thing we talked about yesterday is with over 9,000 stores, and by any measure, really a wildly successful loyalty program. Can you share how you serve your customers through data and insights? And secondly, how do brand partners participate?
Yeah, I love this question because I love data. I'm a data nerd, and I love our customers. So two of my favorite things. And you're right, we've got 9,000 stores. We have over 100 million customers who are part of our rewards program. We serve over 8 million customers every single day in our stores or on our site. So that's a really robust data foundation. And then how do we use that for good? So what we do to then serve our customers with that rich data foundation is personalize their experiences. And we do that in our stores, on our own website, and as well as off-site. Today, Walgreens media, about 60% of our media uses the precision media model, meaning we aren't sending mass messages to broad audiences. We have, on average, over 300 customer segments that we're reaching through any of our marketing campaigns with a relevant message for them. And that's really, how we're serving our customers, is we're getting them the right information in the right place. And then when it comes to our brand partners, the technology and the model that we use to do that is also leveraged by our brand partners in our co-branded shopper marketing campaigns. So for a brand, they get to cherry pick amongst the 100 million Balance Rewards customers and find and message the most high value customers for that brand with a personalized message. So it benefits the brand, it benefits Walgreens, and most importantly, it benefits our customers.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the benefit of personalization, and in the world where marketing is so omnipresent, to be able to strategically place a message to the right person who will receive that, right? Because it's personalized to them. So they'll receive it. It no longer becomes spam. It no longer becomes noise. It no longer becomes a carnival atmosphere. But this is a precision placed message directly from me. So that's a great story. I love that. Roz, I wanted to kick it over to you and just think about what type of, because what Katie described was a great collaboration between brand and retailer. So what other type of tactics and strategies have you seen successful in partnerships with the retailer?
Absolutely. I get excited when I hear all the things that Katie talks about, because those are things that we've been fortunate enough to also do at Chobani in-house. And so we have a lot of our things in-house, i.e. our own agency, be it creative agency, media agency as well. But what also excites me, particularly within the channel role and marketing from a B2B2C perspective, is that we get to flex on both sides. So not only are we commissioning targeted, very focused media with consumers within the drug channel, or be it a C-store channel, or within the restaurant or hotel channel, we do those things in-house. And so we do targeted media based on behaviors and demographic attributes and things of that nature, and target the right type of media vehicle to bring to life. But we also get to partner with really great retailers like Katie and Walgreens, where we're bringing to life innovative and interesting ways to show up in the store. And in particular, one example that I personally love, and it involves Walgreens, is that they came to us, we came to them to say, okay, we're interested in doing some really innovative, different approaches. They had this brand new opportunity where they were doing the digital cooler screen, and they didn't offer it up to everyone, but Chobani being who we are, And what we're trying to do within channel marketing, within the drug channel, is that we said, absolutely, this is something we want to do. And we had the really great opportunity to bring it in-house and create the creative and really show up in an interesting and unique way within the digital cooler screens. And that proved very beneficial because it was innovative, it was super collaborative with the retailer, and it was really allowing us the opportunity to develop something very strategic and targeted. And then in addition to that, we overlaid our own digital marketing flight of media, in which we targeted folks within everything was like about 70 or so stores, and we directly targeted those individuals to also layer in and send some messaging. And so for us, digital targeting is something that we really particularly lean heavy in because it allows us to flex with smaller dollars, bigger dollars, but get maximum results. And so those are some of the ways that we show up in particular around strategy.
I love that, Roz. I mean, that is so well said. I mean, I heard innovative, I heard collaborative, I heard digital, I heard in-store. So let me pivot off of the in-store. Let's pivot just a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about in-store today, right? Because we're in a little bit of a different world, impact of COVID-19. There's been much written about changes in shopper behavior. You know, Forbes reports that retail e-com business is up over 70%, while order volume is up over 100%. So we've accelerated the adoption of e-com, click and collect and delivery services. And frankly, these services are now spanning all demographics. I mean, myself, my 80-year-old mother, who doesn't even have a smartphone, hasn't been in the store since March, and she's doing that with things like click and collect and so on. So the retailers in particular have had to step up, right? And Katie, I'm curious, how has COVID impacted your trip frequency and trip types, and you know, how do you see these trip types evolving as we come out of the fog of COVID?
Yeah, it's been an interesting, crazy year. So when it comes to the impact of shopper behavior at Walgreens, we saw a decline in trip frequency, but we did see an increase in basket size. So what's happening is customers are going out of their homes less and shopping less and trying to consolidate trips. But on the trips they are making, they're buying more and spending more. So when we think about the role that Walgreens can play, there's a convenience aspect to it. So if we are on the way home from the grocery store and you need something specific to Walgreens, like your prescription, and you can pick up a couple other items, how do we make that easier to do? So one way that COVID impacted Walgreens as a company, you know, we're a huge business, and often it's hard to move fast. And I've never seen Walgreens move faster in terms of accelerating our digital capabilities, things like buy online, pick up in store, as well as partnerships with Postmates and DoorDash, because it's all about how do we make it more convenient for our customers to get what they need. And convenience no longer just means being on every corner, which is maybe what it meant 10 years ago for Walgreens, but COVID really accelerated that change. So Roz, from a brand perspective, how has COVID impacted your operations, and are you seeing similar trends on the brand side of things?
Absolutely, Katie. I think you were spot on when you talked about this idea of evolving and the ideal of the basket being amplified, where it reduced in frequency, but it absolutely increased in size. And then another phenomenon that kind of happened on the food side of the business as well as within convenience and drugstore is this idea of sort of the blurring of the lines, right? And I thought it was beautiful when you indicated that folks had to become more that. And so it's interesting when you think about within food service how a lot of restaurants started, when they shut down, they converted into grocery stores. And then also convenience stores and drugstores, and you were spot on with that, had to turn into this amplified version of what they were to really help sort of fill the gap as it relates to convenience and being accessible to all. And we've really seen a lot of that happen with online purchasing, app engagement. And what we've had to do is just really continue to shift and quickly amplify our spend and our focus in those areas to really support that. And then the other piece was we really started to ensure that we came to retail partners within those various different channels with solutions to help them sort of ease into the transition of the next phase of how we consume food. And so that's been interesting. It's been rewarding. It's really pushed us to be innovative in our approaches. It's really allowed us to sort of shift our mix as it related to spend and focus. And it definitely has been rewarding and challenging, but exciting all at once. And so definitely, that's something that we have completely leaned into across all those different areas. So it looks like we can't hear Mike.
Oh yeah, Mike, you might be on mute.
And that's okay, right? That we just said that's the world that we live in. That's the digital world, and we have to be quick, nimble, malleable, because you just don't know what will happen and what will come your way, and you just have to roll with it and keep it going. So it looks like, Katie, we have that last question around this idea of what's our prediction for 2021.
Yeah.
So do you maybe want to start first, and then I'll close it out, and then we'll leave those 5 minutes for questions?
That sounds good. So I kind of touched on it, but my focus for 2021 is really going to be around that evolving definition of convenience. And when we think about next year, it's going to be a focus on digital and making the shopping experience easier through digital, but also still having that store experience that's available for customers who are coming into our stores, especially for Walgreens and our 9,000 stores. They will continue to be our bread and butter, and especially when customers are coming in to pick up their prescriptions. But how do we make that more convenient for them? And how do we ensure that when they're picking up their prescriptions, it's easier to get the other things that they need? And then if you don't want to come into the store, how do we make that experience as seamless as possible as well? So for me, it's all about that evolution of convenience.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I will echo and layer in a couple of components of it. I think for 2021, it's really about taking 2020, evaluating all of the learning, all of the opportunities, all of the pitfalls that occurred, and really saying, okay, how do we amplify and supercharge? I think in particular for us at Chobani, it's about how do we continue to tilt the overall message of what we do, and how we deliver that to consumers, and how we support consumers, and how do we bring good food to all people. And that manifests its way by making sure that we are connecting with really innovative partners like a Walgreens and some of the other partners throughout the various channels to make food as accessible as possible to everyone. And that shows up in all of these different ways that we talked about, through targeted marketing that's very specific and based on key consumer need states, as well as the retailer need states, because all of the tactics doesn't necessarily work for every individual retailer. And being very tuned in on what are those right tactics to help unlock the growth and the opportunity for that particular retailer. And also by making sure that we are being authentic to who we are and how we go to market with our respective consumers. And so, as I indicated, digital, as I indicated, being super innovative and open to new ways to go to market. This ideal of digital apps is huge. I'm seeing it not only in drugstores and C-stores, but I'm also seeing it in the food service space when you think about restaurants in particular. In fact, we know that that's up about 36% over the last 6 months, and it continues to grow, and a lot of different players are trying to figure out how do they continue to amplify their mobile apps, and being used to really see how do you amplify the overall business. So I'll pause there because it looks like we have our first question, and I got real excited about that. So Oh, you're back, Mike.
I'm back. I'm in and out, guys.
Mike, go ahead.
My video's not feeding now,
but
y'all are doing great, man. I'm enjoying watching this. What do you see as the biggest future challenge to retail and e-commerce, and the biggest opportunity? Which, well said.
Awesome. I'll jump on that, Katie, real quick, and then I'll get it to you. So I think the biggest opportunity from our perspective, the brand perspective, is that right now everyone's running to that space, right, of e-commerce and online apps and all of that. And it's how do you continue to be very targeted in your messaging, I think, is the biggest opportunity, as well as the challenge, right? And I think it's going to really require marketers to get really clear about what is the need states that they're delivering on, and what is the overall objectives and goals of that messaging and of those tactics. But I see them both continuing to elevate and grow and become much more important when you look at the total mix of how a shopper gets exposed to the overall product. So, and I'll hand it over to Ms. Katie for that one.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the biggest opportunity is really around personalization and how we're messaging to our customers. So I mentioned that Walgreens today, about 60% of our media is using the precision media model, meaning it's personalized to a specific audience segment with a relevant message. Our goal is by 2023 for 100% of our media to use that model, including traditional channels like TV. So I think it's the opportunity and the challenge, because the opportunity is it's possible to get there. We have goals to get there. The challenge is staying on top of the trends and staying on top of the innovation and trying new things and testing and learning our way to that point. So we really need to continue to be first to market with these types of innovation in the personalization space.
Nice. Well said. If you guys can still hear me, I'll toss out the next question, directed to Katie. So how do you see the overall retail industry evolving in the next few years? And I find this interesting because so much is happening, right, with COVID really accelerating a lot of things that were already happening before COVID, but it's accelerated these things. Katie, do you have a point of view on what the, how is it going to evolve, the overall retail industry?
Yeah, I think it really is around that digital acceleration, and the evolution becomes that customers can get what they want, where they want it, and when they want it. And it's easy to say that, but it's hard to do. So models that we're seeing Target adopt and Walmart adopt in terms of how you pick up your products or order your products, I think is going to continue to accelerate in retail verticals that aren't as specific to e-commerce from the beginning.
Yeah, and I can underscore that a little bit, Katie, too, because we've done some research on the Viacom Cultural Insights team where we've asked various demographics, and I don't have them in front of me, so I can't quote the data, but what I do know is the insight. The insight was the fact that COVID accelerated digital adoption, and people are going to continue to do that after COVID, and all demographics are going to continue to do these things. So I think it's going to be a interesting next 5 years to see how things evolve and how shopping and shoppers evolve. Okay, let's see if we have other questions. I see agree on the opportunities ahead of us. How do you see the opportunities being impacted in a cookie-less world? Katie, that might be a good question for you too, with an understanding of the data and insights.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about this at Walgreens. I think that the value of first-party retailer data will increase. I also think that there's going to be a lot of pressure and ownership on the publishers to get people to sign up or kind of identify themselves on their websites. So I feel like there's going to be a big push towards that. And a lot of that ownership is going to be on them, and they're going to need to step up and do that, as well as kind of the increase in walled gardens, if you will. We could see more and more of those popping up for those that do have first party data. But I don't know, Roz, if at Chobani you guys have started talking about this. You guys have your own DMP, you have your own kind of in-house world. How have you guys been having this conversation?
Yes, and it's very similar. It's like, with the removal or sort of shifting to a different approach of that, is we're constantly trying to figure out how do we keep the consumer engaged, and as a result of that, how we're getting that necessary data to continue to refine everything that we're doing from a messaging perspective and the delivering of the messaging. And so we excuse me, we started to just definitely look at, this idea of keeping them engaged, consistently doing offers that resonates with very different types of groups. So we don't send out one messaging to everyone. We try to target the messaging and the offers and the engagement to the very specific audience so that we don't fatigue them out, so that we don't have them say, okay, I don't want to get this email anymore, because that's something that we absolutely don't want to do. But we continue to lean in with partners to explore those many opportunities. And we've been looking and reevaluating our approaches and using our own DMP in various targeted platforms.
That's good. Well said. So there's a follow-up question around walled gardens. I think we addressed that a little bit, but are there concerns about this concept of walled gardens and the flow of information and the sharing of information? Is there anything else to add around that?
I think from our perspective, we're concerned about it, but again, we're not, because at the flip side of that, it just causes us to become much more innovative and causes us to really think about different ways to engage and get to the end user and get to the customer. And so we're hopeful that once again, we will evaluate, optimize, and ideate around that. But it definitely causes some worry, but it just means that maybe we have to amplify in store. Maybe we have to amplify on app. Maybe we have to amplify in TV. Like all these different ways to try to bring the consumer back into that space. So.
That's great. In closing, and I can see, David, we're ready to transition, but in closing, I'd like to address our audience at Bose, directly. And I know holidays, right around the corner, an important season. I brought some insights that you may or may not find interesting, might be just intuitive, but 80% of consumers surveyed believe this year's holiday celebration will look very different. That's kind of a duh statement, right? But 73% say that celebrating will be hard this year because of COVID-19, and many traditions are at risk. So Americans won't be traveling in their usual numbers. Even the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is a 90-year-old tradition, is going to be reimagined. And finally, a reason to believe, and I think this applies to our friends at Bose, is that 66% of shoppers would rather purchase a product this year. Now, that's a flip, right? They'd rather purchase a product this year versus an experience. But honestly, I look at Bose as a product that delivers an experience. So my best wishes to our friends at Bose for a prosperous holiday season. And Katie and Roz, thank you guys so much. You guys carried me as expected, kinda. But I really do appreciate you guys.
This was fantastic. Thank you all so much. Katie, Roz, I know we'll have to have you back as like co-MCs or something, right? You clearly got it. But Mike, we feel you. Technical difficulties is the name of the game. We're all experiencing them. I think everybody is understanding. But this was such an insightful conversation. So thank you all, and we'll keep the show rolling. All right. Let's give a virtual round of applause for Mike, Rosalind, and Katie. We've got our next speakers coming up. We have Travis Freeman, the global head of media for Uber. We have Junior Reyes, who handles video and digital advertising and media and programmatic for residents. And we have our moderator, Jamie, I believe, coming up on stage as well. So I see Travis here. I see Junior here. But that was such a great discussion, and now we've got Jamie Lowe as well. So welcome, everyone. We're going to be talking, all of today's themes and topics were provided, by Bose and the direction from the team. So this one's all about media and really looking at how to rethink media strategy and measurement, specifically around some of these new emerging channels, whether it's TikTok or podcasts, or even just our existing traditional digital vehicles. So, Jamie, I will turn it over to you. Junior, I think you're still on mute, but welcome. Travis, welcome. Jamie, welcome. We're excited to kick this one off. So, it's the virtual floor is all yours, guys.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. So I'm Jamie Lowe. As you heard, I oversee national sales for Intersection. We're a media and technology company with digital and static assets in top DMAs across the country. We represent cities and municipalities, and we specialize in bringing digital experiences for brands to public spaces. I'm joined by two amazing marketers, as you just heard, Travis Freeman, Global Head of Media Uber, and Junior Reyes, Head of Marketing for Resident. So Travis and then Junior, I guess you want to start out and just take a minute and touch on your roles and responsibilities, and then we can dive into some of the measurement stuff.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I don't have as an eloquent of introduction for my as you do. Yeah, my name's Travis. I lead media at Uber, globally across all of our lines of businesses. So normally based in New York. I've been down in South Carolina since March during COVID, just hanging out with my family where I grew up, and living in my childhood, which nothing is more humbling than that. So I'm excited to be here, though.
That is awesome. That's a good change of scenery from New York and everything that is happening here right now. I'm still stuck here. I'm Junior Reyes. I head up marketing for Resident. I've been in Astoria, Queens throughout the whole COVID pandemic. Haven't been doing much, just kind of taking care of myself, doing a lot with my fiance and my two dogs, doing a lot of road trips. That's been nice. But yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you to the Bose team. We know the topic of new media measurement strategies is something important to you, and we're excited to discuss it. With that, we'll dive in. Travis and Junior, I think top line measurement represents different things to different people. So you want to just again top line touch on what does measurement mean to you? What strategies are you leaning in on?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. So, I mean, I think what we do at Uber is we are very specific around tactics and how we think about measurement, and it's not a one size fits all solution by any means. So, as we're looking at brand media, we are very focused on just brand metrics. So it is single KPIs depending on the line of business, depending on the actual market, looking at awareness, looking at consideration, looking at favorability, and building a plan specifically around that. On the performance side, it is pure ROAS. So we were looking at ROAS as our single KPI in performance. And if you think about that's almost our horizontal, right? Because that's our always on strategy and all of our brands, all of our verticals. So we have campaign pulses that brand is sending people down the funnel, but they're the qualified human. So I think the intersection between the two of those that we're really pushing on is thinking about how certain brand metrics have certain impacts on the business. So in doing a lot of testing around does consideration actually drive the most impact on ROAS? Does favorability drive the most impact on ROAS? How does that change by consumer segment? Does it change by line of business? How does it change by actual region? But we're never actually placing ROAS as a metric on brand, right? Because we're going to lose every time. The same way that we're never going to put brand lift studies on our performance media, they're going to lose every time. So how does everyone kind of stay in their lanes appropriately, but then really figure out where's that connective tissue that makes the two of them even more powerful?
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with Travis here. Knowing the difference is the biggest thing. It's when you are setting up your tactics or your marketing across the different channels, really understanding that all of these channels are different. They have different purposes. They serve different audiences, and that the audience's mindset are different at each of these channels. For us, is really focusing on overall one KPI. And that is something that we've essentially taken the ROAS model and just flipped it. And it's a reverse ROAS. So it's the cost to grow sales. And then from that, that distills down into all the different marketing channels, and then you can then reverse engineer that into a CPA or a ROAS number for that particular channel, or even a top of funnel metric. Because then you're looking at it in the sense of like how much money am I willing to spend to get a dollar. So for us, it's really like knowing the difference in terms of measurement, and also understanding that for a lot of these marketing channels, there's going to be challenges. No attribution or measurement solution is going to be perfect. It's just understanding what works for your business instead of trying to follow the next big trend in attribution that you think will solve your company's problem. You have to really understand your company's metrics and understand which one of those metrics is going to be your North Star to then guide all the other channels to come together.
Junior, we spoke yesterday, and while many brand ad budgets have taken a little hit this year, and understanding that measuring money spent is more important than ever, you mentioned that your budgets have actually held up pretty well. But curious how, with everything we've gone through this year, has it changed measurement strategies for you guys, or is it kind of status quo?
So the measurement strategy, I don't think has changed much. It's more about the forecast. I think the forecast has changed just because we are in uncertain waters, and there is a lot of things that have just completely changed. User behavior has changed. The way people are shopping or researching, the whole consideration process has changed. So when we typically look at our measurements, dashboards and whatnot, like comparing that to last year is useless because it is not the same. People are living in a new era, new norm, which I think will stay here. I mean, there might be a little bit of a shift where people will go back to retail or physical stores. But I think once users have gotten a taste of what digital is in the way of shopping, it's going to become a bit harder. So for us, what we instead have focused on is just the week to week throughout this period and understanding how the channels are changing based on our North Star metric, which is our cost of growth sales, and then down everything else. But for us, we haven't had to drop spend because of the industry that we're in, right? Everybody needs a mattress. Now more than ever, people are realizing that, hey, I am home pretty much all day. I can't tell the difference between getting up and going to sleep sometimes. So they're realizing that their mattress is like a core product that they need to invest in. So for us, it's like, how do we capture that consumer and that mindset at any given time throughout the marketing channel, whether that is TV? There's people that are going on jogs and running outside and doing all these things that are passing through places where we could potentially get to them. And you want to be top of mind across all these different places for that consumer, especially now when they have so many other things to worry about. And I mean, in the case of Bose, for example, I think of the product. Now more than ever, people need a good set of headphones. I mean, I'm thinking like I work from home, my fiance works from home, and we're both yelling at each other. If I think of the Bose consumer, right, during these times, they are doing at-home workouts. They are going outside to get fresh air. They are trying to reinvent how they separate the work-life balance in the home. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities there, but it's just really understanding your audience mindset during this time. And it's extremely hard, but they will tell you. And there's surveys that you can do. We've done a lot of surveys through this time to see how we can help our consumers to give them the best product possible. We've surveyed our previous consumers to ask them, hey, how can we help during this time? If donating mattresses, etc. And then that helps us inform our marketing as well, because as the consumer, essentially the consumer is telling us how to help them. We can put that messaging in the marketing, especially when it comes from people who already bought from us.
Makes sense. Travis, you want to add anything there? Otherwise, we'll go to another question.
No, I mean, I think for us, it's just, our budgets have shifted. We've, our Rise business is upside down, but our business is exploding. So it's just shifting dollars. I think the biggest change for us is what we're measuring, and how we shifted that. I think Eats is very clear. We are, in the US, we're facing DoorDash. In all of our other markets, we're usually number one. So it's all about just consideration. And
Yep.
and making sure that people know that we have the same selection, right, that DoorDash, because I think there's a perception issue that we're the QSR delivery service rather than, your local Thai delivery. I think on the ride side, we've shifted really to allowing this to be a brand platform now, and kind of taking a stance with some of these issues, and telling people no mask, no ride, telling people if they tolerate racism, delete Uber, thank you for not using our service, right, and not spreading the disease. So it's more long-term ROI for us right now in brand building, and versus kind of that short term, which we've been kind of measuring previously.
Yeah, that makes sense. Travis, when you are looking at a media mix model, you're looking at media plans. Oftentimes there's a shiny object, an emerging technology, a new channel, and a lot of times those are more difficult to measure than kind of some traditional formats and mediums. Does that create, is it a measurement challenge? Is it an opportunity? Does it factor into your media plan? Again, when so many of these new things out there are perceived to be, great from a marketing standpoint, but more difficult to measure.
Yeah, I mean, we have the traditional 70-20-10, right? So I think that we are always open to 10% of our media being spent against, new platforms that can't necessarily measure everything that we need for them to. I think the big thing for us, though, is usually whenever there's lack of measurement, there's also lack of brand safety. So we actually, the measurement piece is kind of less important for me versus the brand safety piece, because if I can't have very certain adjacency controls, if I can't have red and green lists, with everything that I'm doing, then I'm just not going to be spending. But I mean, I think what we are trying to do is we're also working with a lot of the publishers to even think about, like, if they don't have the capabilities, how do they bring in third parties? So whether it be Kantar, whether it be Kinder Millward Brown, whether it be Nielsen, even if we can get like certain brand lift studies, like that's good enough, right? And we can at least do baselines against everything else that we're doing. I mean, we're lucky as a tech company, that we have our own internal brand tracker as well. So we can do pretty easy match markets and do certain holdout groups around certain demos and kind of geos where we can actually isolate a lot of this as well. So we can measure it ourselves if the platform itself can't measure it for us. But yeah, I mean, we're willing, but it is limited to that 10%. And if the publisher can't do more than that in the near term, then we shift.
Junior, how about you?
Yeah, I think for us, we're a bit different, not different. We're actually we're very performance focused. So for us, it's like these new emerging technologies, you think connected TV or people revolutionizing direct mail and trying to make it more programmatic in a sense, or even podcasts to some degree with all the different advancements now. For us, is really understanding the limitations first before we go in there, to know if we should invest. On average, I would say that maybe 5% of our marketing spend at the moment is for testing, just because of COVID. I was surprised that would be maybe like 10% of our marketing budget would be for testing new channels. So when I look at a marketing channel like Connected TV, for example, is something that based on years is not that new. The last 5 years is kind of taking up in terms of market momentum and whatnot. But for us, it's really understanding what are the limitations. So a lot of the limitations on Connected TV is the fact that the publishers and the platforms cannot agree on a single ID to measure household and whatnot. So for us, it's trying to figure out who is someone that is willing to give out as much information as possible to help our measurement, right? We've tested Hulu directly, we tested The Trade Desk, we tested Google directly, and a lot of these big platforms, big publishers, they are trying to essentially keep everything to themselves to try and win the race to whoever has the best measurement for this sort of channel. That does not help us because we then rely on them grading their homework and it becomes a back and forth on the numbers and whatnot. And we just don't have the time for that. So what we do instead is we seek out the smaller players that are trying to innovate quicker because they're smaller, they're more nimble, they're more agile. So we work with them to try to understand what can they give out based on their tech stack, and then we go from there. And then we figure out how we can integrate the two and help them out in terms of giving the signals that they need to optimize further. On the brand safety side, we do look at that, but based on our, considering the product that we sell, something that we kind of put on the back seat oftentimes, just because everybody needs to sleep. We just adjust the messaging of how we position the mattress depending on where we're going to make sure that is something that doesn't conflict too much.
Yeah, makes sense. It's interesting, June. You and Travis both mentioned roughly 10% of ad budgets going to testing or platforms that are difficult to measure right now. The amount of time that you guys devote to these emerging channels and emerging technologies, is it more time devoted but only 10% spent, or is it roughly 10% of time because that's the amount you're spending?
I mean, for us, it's probably less. I mean, because we before we go into any campaign, we have very specific learning agendas that are attached to everything that we're doing. There are multiple measurement studies that are running at any given point, right? So we always cross-channel brand lift study. We have TV, kind of causal TV studies or correlation studies that are happening on TV. We try to consolidate as much as we can within programmatic, even like podcast buys, OTT, CTV, so that we can kind of singular deployment across all of our unique IDs, like from DV360 or Trade Desk. So I think for those, like we try to limit it to 10% of our budget, but then we also try to limit it to at most 2 partners as well within that. So we're not doing a full long tail. So it's kind of like we probably spend more time on ensuring that our creative is appropriate for those new channels, because normally it's not the same as everything else that we're doing. And then we're, kind of holding our breath afterwards and kind of seeing what comes back.
Makes sense. Junior, how about you?
Yeah, I think I would definitely tend to agree. For us, the 10% is just because if we feel like we put 10% out, there's only so much that's going to affect our bottom line numbers. If nothing happens, but it's rare that nothing ever happens of any new technology. For us, is really the focus is on the measurement initially, and then the creative. And we put in a lot of time on the creative. And then from there, it's the same thing. It's just like, okay, we did what we could on the measurement. We put out the best possible creative. Let's see what happens. And then we just make sure that we have all of our ongoing brand list studies, post-purchase surveys, on-site surveys for visitors, etc. And yeah.
All right, that makes sense. I'm curious. We're in a world where consumers have access and utilize more screens than ever before. There are some challenges with linear TV. At the same time, an influx of opportunities around OTT, CTV, mobile and social, digital screens in public spaces. I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts around kind of storytelling across mediums, omni-channel advertising, things like that. You want to start, Travis?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, we're lucky, because we have so much information around our consumers. So even as we're thinking about everything you just talked about, we're working with LiveRamp to ensure that even, when we start to do things like digital out of home, when we start to do anything like CTV, all of that is channeled through like a connections strategy and a connections plan. We're making sure that we're getting impression level data even at a digital home standpoint, so that we know when someone saw something, where someone saw something, and then where they're actually going to see that next message. So you have to do a lot of upstream planning, right? And this is where, my background is CPG. So, I think that I've lived and breathed, and I grew up on Procter, it's just like, 200-page connection strategy decks, right? Where you're just looking at consumer journeys over and over and over again, which is a lot, right? But I think whenever we start to look at stuff like this, is actually really important because we really understand and map out what that consumer journey is, and ensuring that we're working with partners who allow for that kind of first party ingestion through LiveRAM for us, where we can actually get that exposure level data, and then we can understand where they're actually watching everything next. So then we're setting up our creative that we're starting with our 30s. We're starting like White and Kennedy in Portland as their are. They love a film, right? So it's like, how do we start there? How do we then get to a 30? How do we get to a 6? But all of that is planned out and ensuring that we're getting that exposure level data across all of those platforms.
I think you're muted, Jamie.
Sorry. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I would definitely 100% agree with Travis. We also partner with LiveRAM, and LiveRAM is instrumental in a lot of the emerging technology, but also just understanding the cross-channel, omni-channel, just picture, the high-level picture, right? We've invested so much into our internal data team so that we don't rely too much on external vendors. So we have a rule internally is that if the vendor cannot work with LiveRAM and pass us data that we need in order to make this connection, and unfortunately we can't work with that vendor. And it's just simply because we're not in a position to try to solve a new technology or a new thing that a vendor is trying to offer. So for us, is plugging in everything through LiveRAM, understanding the user journey, like Travis said, and we review those things I think more than I ever remember sometimes. And then from there, we just try to understand our consumer. One thing with the consumer nowadays that is so challenging is that the consumers just have so much information at a finger away. Like they can just search whatever they want. They can put a company, or they call it, they can cancel a company so quickly nowadays. That is very important and imperative that you have your story and your brand position and kind of sync throughout your marketing channels. And I think to do that well, you need to have a good partner that allows you to connect the touches, allows you to really see the whole user journey in its entirety. But you also have to understand, again, your own consumer's mindset in each of these moments to ensure that you have that brand messaging, that brand image paired up with that specific marketing channel. Because the measurement is great, but if you don't have the creative to back up where that user is in that mindset, or portray that what the user is to portray what the user is in that mindset, then it becomes extremely hard to get the picture connected. So that's kind of our approach to the whole consumer journey, and ensuring that our picture and our story is well connected.
Great. Thank you. All right, with the couple minutes left, why don't we try and address a couple of questions which have come in here. And the first one is a good one. It's a hot topic today, which is a cookieless world. So in terms of engagement of a cookieless world, do you see gated content becoming more relevant to promote engagement and data capture?
I mean, I can start. I mean, no. I mean, to be honest, like I think for us, I mean, it's funny because I think, last year, we were kind of riding high and we're like, we are post cookieless, we're awesome, right? Like I think, Uber is interesting because we actually have more first party data than any brand in the world where consumers pay for a service. So we're just like, we're good. Now post IDFA, it's really shifting us to, I want to say, think a bit more like a really smart CPG company, and really moving into models, and being okay with models and pushing models in a way that's much more relevant than they have been in the past, and not necessarily looking at the one-to-one. Because even with like Facebook right now, like we get one-to-one passback data. Like we work with Servata in order to get one-to-one. So we are so finely tuned, right, for that one-to-one conversion that the biggest shift for us is really, again, like shifting towards a modeled world where MMMs are actually back in style, right? Like we have to think about like what is the new evolution of an MMM, and we've actually never had an MMM because we haven't needed one, and we haven't cared to have one because we've known exactly what was going on before. So for us, I don't think it's about gated content or capturing kind of data additionally just because we already have so much of it. It's about how are we thinking about what are the resources that are going to be ahead of us in order to think about measurement whenever we're not going to be able to get that causal effect. We need to rely on models, but we need to make models much better, much smarter, and much faster than they have been in the past.
Makes sense. Junior, you want to chime in on that?
I think he answered that very, very well. Same thing for us. We've invested so much into our data science team in order to not rely so much on cookies and IDFA, et cetera, because that is really dependent on the walled gardens and those platforms. So we kind of shifted our mindset, I'll say starting last year, to more MMA modeling internally, to the point that we right now don't rely on a third-party vendor to even measure our TV. We've adapted internally to be able to do our own baseline close-lift analysis. We've done kind of our own modeling to understand CPA that comes out of TV, and same thing for all the other channels. And then we just dilute that into a marketing channel managers so that they can optimize their campaigns. Yeah.
Great. I think, David, you want one more question, or are we good?
I think we've got time for one more super short question because we got to keep things rolling today.
All right. Well, I think it will be short because I think we kind of touched on it a little bit already, but the role of data science in media buys.
It should be a focus. It should be a very important focus. We've invested a lot of money in that, and we think it's kind of like our edge compared to our competitors that we have that internally versus relying on other technologies and other things. Because if you have it internally, you can manipulate it to your needs and your company's needs.
Yeah, I mean, instrumental, right? Like it's like they're the issue for us and measurement, right? So it's like post campaigns, right? They're getting everything, they're taking learnings, they're modeling those, they're putting them into our planning cycle to ensure that we have that feedback loop. So it's a huge priority and should be instrumental, I think, for anyone.
Agree. All right, David. Well, I guess we're about out of time, but again, thank you to Brand Innovators. Thank you to Bose and Travis Jr. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you both.
This was awesome, as it always is. Ryan, Travis Jr., Jamie, we always appreciate your time, so thank you so much. I wish we could keep this going, but we've got a consolidated program. We're trying to accommodate multiple time zones, Bose international teams and regional teams and U.S. teams, so we're trying to keep things very consolidated today. But we appreciate your time. We'll have you back again soon, as we always do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Keeping things rolling, we've got our final session in the content portion before we go into the Labs Innovation Day demos. We have Christine White at Ulta Beauty. We have Ryan Dieter at Influential. We're going to be talking about influencer marketing. What else? One of the hottest topics. You can't escape it, whether it's on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, or anywhere else for that matter. I mean, nowadays, big conversations around Substack and OnlyFans. I mean, everything's an influencer platform at this point. So, it should be a great conversation. And of course, for the folks at Bose, thinking about how do we tie that influencer marketing back to sales, back to the bottom line, and really just moving the needle. So, Christine, thank you so much for being here. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. I will turn the virtual stage over to you guys. We are going to wrap very promptly by 11 o'clock, we're going to transition over to the demo days. So I'll hop back in. I don't know if we'll have time for a lot of audience Q&A, but we'll make sure that you guys have a great conversation. Kick it off.
Appreciate it, brother. Hey, Christine, how are you?
Good. How are you? How is everybody?
I think everybody's got. Are you sheltering in place in Chicago right now?
Yes, based in Chicago. So
you're in a very nice boardroom. I can by the Cisco background. Yeah.
fancy boardroom.
Okay, very cool. Well, great to talk today. And for those listening, this is all about tying back social media influencers and social content back to sales outcomes, whatever it is that you guys care as part of your top and lower funnel. And Christine, I'm really excited to talk to you today. You run the social for Ulta, and you obviously been doing this, I'm sure, for years in terms of figuring out what's the best way to engage with the customer and then drive them to your ultimate outcome. I guess maybe kind of take a step back. What is the POV of you and Ulta around influencers and social media? Is this your biggest channel? Is this your biggest focus, or is this kind of one of the kind of extensions onto TV or radio or digital?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's a priority channel for us. I won't say it's the biggest channel. We are, a national company, national advertising across, print, TV, radio, the full gamut of, your marketing mix. But influencer and social continue to become priority investments for us, just as we think about the ROI, as we think about where our consumer is, and ultimately as we think about some of the challenges with what was our marketing mix and our media mix and where that's evolving. It's definitely moving digital. It's definitely moving social. And as you think about beauty and influencer, it's a massive opportunity as we think about, even pre-COVID, but especially during and post-COVID, we continue to see that influence and that importance.
So great segue then. So for since March, has the focus been around driving people? I imagine your e-com has grown exponentially. I imagine everyone's been trying to figure out what do they do about having brick and mortar, and you've got a very unique business that requires, or not requires, but usually assumes people are going to be touching, feeling the product. So how are you using influencers to drive, whether it's now in store, for the world's open back up, e-com, or what's your POV as it relates to that?
Yeah, so our e-com business, obviously, while we were shut down from a physical standpoint, our e-com business over the past, roughly 6 months or so has grown 200%. So, we really look at the acceleration of e-commerce, and the need for digital to really support that has accelerated the growth there, 2 to 3 years. So as we think about influencers, and as we think about the very tactile experience that beauty is, influencers and their audiences become all that more important. So as you think about the need to test and trial product is paramount in the beauty space. And so as you think about the credibility and the authenticity of people that you trust to do that, influencers are obviously really helping to bring that experience to life, while we can't bring that experience in our stores to life. And coupling that with, what we're doing on our own channels, it's extremely important that users and consumers and guests are able to trial via, app or our site, but also really take those ratings and reviews that trial from a trusted source. And influencers are really have been, the sort of beacon of light for us as we think about, what we've been through over the past, 9 months or so.
I think everything in life is proxy. So we have a lot of people that are listening on the Bose side trying to figure out, how do they apply this to their business? And I mean, I'm not going to speak for them, but I imagine there's a good amount of trying on, hearing, being a part of the experience with Bose, and very similar to obviously into a beauty product, to be in store or be touching the product at some point, whether in the life cycle of the review process. How do you guys approach the consumption behavior of people, like in consumer trends? You have influencers. Is it all tutorial based? Is it unboxing? I guess, how do you think about ways, because I'm trying to think of how Bose might think about it. What are the things that, you guys are thinking about in terms of content that would resonate really well, especially only over social?
Yeah, so I think as you think about content, right, and that's primarily what influencers are doing for you is value to the consumer, right? So we sort of think about it in 4 quadrants, personal value, education, entertainment, and then promotion. So, promotion is a big part of our business. It's a big part of why consumers want to shop, but education and entertainment are really the 2, core areas in which we see influencers, driving that course, and that ability to shift, businesses or consumer mindset away from this need to always look for a discount or look for a way in. But really, it's that value exchange. So as you think about what influencers are able to do there, they're really able to sort of, distill down why you need something. Right. And to say, here's why I need it, and here's why it works in my life. And even as you think about that, regardless of category, whether it's beauty or it's technology, it really just comes down to lifestyle. And so inherently across the board, that's where we're seeing the influencer industry shift from very specific segments and needs to this idea of really, how does this fit in my lifestyle? So you don't have to be stuck in sort of one vein of just a beauty influencer or, or just a tech influencer. You have a lot of opportunity to think about identifying influencers that are right for your consumer. And that really, as you think about that space and not so much about the influencer that is the tech influencer, it opens up a whole onslaught of opportunity to really expand who you're reaching and how you're reaching them.
I love that. And that content can lead to, obviously, whether it's top of level or funnel, and a bit of foreshadowing for those that are watching. We were showing a couple pages slides on what is the hierarchy of ways to measure from vanity metrics all the way to in-store sales. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I think Christine has a wealth of knowledge from what's worked consumer-wise or consumption-wise. Is there a specific platform? Are you guys doubling down on Pinterest right now? Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? Tried and true? Where do you guys see the most amount of ROI?
Yeah, so I think you landed our three core. Instagram in beauty is sort of paramount. It's where all of our brands want to play. As we think about it from a retail opportunity, I think we have stronger platforms. I think Pinterest in particular, as you think about a source of discovery and what people are looking to do there, you have such opportunity, especially as you think about the need to really look at the marketing funnel and the ability to measure things like offline conversion, to measure the direct impact on sales, more so than I think, at least from my vantage point as a retailer, Instagram is able to do. Just because, of the way in which it works, even as you think about shopping and some of the complexities there. But I will say Pinterest is sort of that platform that sits over here, because I think what it is the emergence between something like search and social. So really it serves a dual purpose for businesses. And I always say it's sort of that, that little unknown that people don't want to focus on because it's not the bright, shiny, sexy thing at the moment. But I think there's such a wealth of opportunity, and we have seen, insurmountable results in terms of just doubling down on not just, pushing out advertising, but really as we think about how we tie in influencer content into the platform and how we are seeing that even drive results. So not just thinking about the one-to-one relationship of where an influencer's community sits, but how do you leverage the content that they're creating and putting paid media support behind that to even necessitate incremental opportunity and sales growth there. And then TikTok, obviously, just as you think about the virality that TikTok still allows people, I think there's something to be said yet for the organic nature of the platform that is really unique and something we haven't seen with a lot of our other major social platforms, and the ability to go and do there. I will say from a media side, jury's still out. They're not as sophisticated as the other platforms in terms of that, in terms of your marketing and media opportunities. But as you think about influencer marketing, there is a lot of potential there. And we have seen a lot of success even from associates of Ulta Beauty, and the ability for them to connect with consumers and to drive sales there as well.
Well, I know TikTok is top of mind, and we're actually a TikTok partner, and we've run a number of both native and paid kind of a boosted pieces. So, yeah, they don't quite have what Facebook has built yet, but obviously it's a nascent platform in terms of the full level of uploads and live ramp integrations. Those are all coming. But what I will say is one of the things I do like about it, and for those that are nerds like myself, or I think all of Chrissy's a nerd, but in terms of paid media, is that if you take the value of TikTok, obviously, is that someone can have 10,000 or less followers and have a 10 million view video because of the nature of the virality from the content really performing well in the algorithm. What really is really exciting is there's something called the branded content unit, kind of like the Instagram unit. It's like an alpha release they made. Basically, it's the influencer's likeness, kind of like whitelisting, but on TikTok. And we're seeing tremendous amount of, it's not just the paid media is being seen by people. It actually adds to the larger number on the native side, and it doesn't slow any virality. There's a fear that a lot of these platforms, once you start putting paid media behind things, it'll slow things down. With TikTok, we've discussed with them for years. They've made it a thing. So if you guys are using TikTok and you put paid media behind a post, it does not all of a sudden start capping that one. So I've seen a lot of clients do like the big dance or the big music portion, and then start cutting it up into smaller, more regional based activations with paid media. And ultimately it doesn't affect the larger video. So those of you that are testing on TikTok, I highly recommend it. There's going to be some future additions to their measurement piece in the coming months.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I'd be remiss. TikTok. I mean, you have every week it changes where the winds of the government for ban. Is Ulta a big player on TikTok? You have a big own and operated property there?
Yeah, I mean, it's growing. We started our TikTok back in March, and it has about 90,000 followers. But I will say, just as you think about TikTok, I see tremendous potential, irrespective of Oracle and Walmart and the government and all of that. So jury's still out on what that looks like for us, but I think what they're doing there is really speaking to the consumer and how they want to consume content. So I think it really is consumer first as you think about what they're doing, and they're being really smart, like you were saying, Ryan, about the integrations that they're making so that brands can really understand the value there without jeopardizing what creators are doing on the platform and sort of that raw nature of how that connection is being created. And you continue to see that time and time again, whether it is something that you have, paid support behind or it is native, you continue to see the incrementality in terms of sales growth and opportunity when something really does speak to how the platform was meant to create content. And you also see the parallel to that of when it's not native to the platform, how it does not translate directly with that consumer base.
Exactly. And ultimately the consumer is now, I think TikTok's brilliance and beauty is that it made a very fun and simple way to create UGC. Clients are audience members that are they're seeing something, not just being like and scrolling past. They're engaging with it. They're creating their own remixes of these things. So I think TikTok, regardless, it's here to stay in some form or fashion, even if there is more governmental stuff. It's just powerful. It's 100 million plus people in the U.S. That's why Walmart and those people are going after it. I guess I want to get really tactical for a second. So when you're driving ROI, and ROI can mean a number of things. And I'd love for you to kind of describe I guess I'll stop first there. When you describe ROI in your own org, is it brand lift, intent, sentiment, likes? Is it clicks, conversions? Is it all of those things? I guess how do you kind of figure out your own hierarchy?
Yeah, so it's definitely all of it, right? We have a very complex model, both as a brand and as a retailer. So we sort of have this dual opportunity that we have to continue to balance, right? So it really does become sort of, the combination of all of those things, depending on what it is we're trying to do at any one time. And we know that ultimately, not everything is a one-to-one correlation, right? So not everything is going to be a one-to-one connection to sales, nor should it be, right? So that's why there is, that's why we call it a marketing mix. As we think about brand lift and what we need to do for Ulta Beauty's brand reputation and image there, thus to impact the loyalty of our consumers, thus to drive, larger basket size and sales. So you can see the trickle down effect of how everything doesn't become one-to-one. But yes, brand lift is extremely important as we think about Ulta Beauty and what we're looking to do there in terms of gaining unaided and aided awareness. But as you think about, as you go down that, right, sort of combination of things, sales lift and conversions are extremely important, especially in our current climate when, we've seen, such a hit to the retail business overall, but especially as we think about beauty, was already in a bit of a downturn as you think about makeup. So being able to evolve and make that up is extremely important. So we see such opportunity in some of the, what we consider smaller channel drivers in terms of social and influencer in really looking at sales lift and conversion there.
I love it, and it's great to hear from the brand's mouth of what matters most. And I wanted to give everyone and to hear just because what is the art of the possible? What are other Fortune 1000 brands doing? And it runs the entire gamut of your funnel. There is no right or wrong. It just depends on your need state based on certain markets, online or offline. So I'll breeze through really quickly. I'm not going to do a big tutorial. If you guys have any questions afterwards, feel free to hit me up. But basically, you can start on the left with vanity metrics. Those are likes, engagements, comments, sentiment can be put in that box. I'd probably deserve its own box, but like brand lift studies, favorability, purchase intent, that's also something that can be put in vanity metrics, but really is a almost next level funnel down. retail. So whether it's Ulta or Bose is being sold at Best Buy or wherever it is, you can actually map back. Did someone see that content on Instagram or any of these platforms? Then physically walk into a store. It's through partners like Foursquare or Placed.IQ. There's literally a dozen of those people that have different mobile advertiser IDs that are tracking people's anonymously tracking their IDs and where they're going. Next level up would be online sales. So pixelation of that content. So assuming that your website or the retailer website has a place to fire based off somebody makes a sale or puts in their email address, that will be able to map back again. It's that influencer's native post, or in this case with pixeling, usually it's a paid boosting alongside that. So driving back online sales. Actually, Christine, do you guys work? Actually, it would make sense for you guys. But if you happen to use with Amazon, Amazon also has a way to map back to their product page, but similar to any sort of retailer as well. Credit card data. This is actually both an online or offline piece, whether it's an Oracle or any of the other 100 million plus US-based credit cards that exist. So the idea is that did someone see that content? You hit them with a custom audience of people that you know have bought beauty products in the past or Apple Beats in the past or some sort of competitor or your own product. And they drive that into an actual store or go to an online sale. And that's actually mapping back to people's credit cards. Now, again, anonymized. They don't know that Ryan saw an ad and bought Ulta or went to bought Bose, but a 37-year-old male living in Los Angeles that has a credit card went and bought that product. And then the two highest levels are in-store sales through loyalty cards. Now, we work with like grocery stores like through IRI or Nielsen or those people. I'm sure Ulta has probably the most robust audience data in the world around beauty. So they have their own. Actually, Christine, I don't put you on the spot. Do you guys ever leverage that with clients? Do you ever allow for custom audiences on your users, or is it more just on your own back end?
No, I mean, our loyalty program is, 37 million deep. So the amount of data and opportunity we have there is massive. So it is, sort of the pinnacle about, how we think about and drive our business. And so to your point, like that is an extremely important part of how we think about, audience modeling and all of what we do from a media perspective. So it definitely gives us a wealth of data to go off of, even as we think about, opportunities for things like acquisition or so on.
Guys, those are listening. That's kind of the theme here, is that the perfect mix of the aesthetics of the proper identified influencer, the right content with that custom audience, whether through loyalty card or for whatever that kind of basis is, driving people to make a decision and tracking that and obviously optimizing that. So, we have 5 minutes to wrap, so perfect. So all of that applies to the in-store piece. And the last thing I'll say is that if you happen to, on the Bose side, if you happen to have your product in Walmart, there are also ways to even map that back based off of available inventory. So I imagine also Ulta has this, is certain stores have certain levels of inventory, and based on what your, what exists in the inventory per location, you want to drive people where the actual products are. So I assume the same thing for Bose. Your product, I'm sure, is off the shelves in certain times of the year. Being able to map that is a huge portion of both your lift and your optimization. And then lastly, because we are also an NFL partner, you can map back to TV tune-in. So if you have a big integration with the NFL or some major sporting events, or with Ulta with some sort of beauty-based TV show, all of that is now trackable. So don't think of influencers as purely top of funnel. They can be, and they're still great at that, but they really are the full closed loop.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Great. And so with all that being said, there is still the tactical nature of how do you identify the best influencers and then use them either singularly or throughout the year. I believe you guys have an Ulta CRM. I think you guys built, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So we, as you think about influencers, like I said, it's not always about identifying the perfect match for your brand. It's about finding the perfect match for your consumer, right? So I think that's a really important part of it. So as you think about things like, CRM and the ability to create extensions there across your properties, right? Influencers should start at a certain entry point, and ultimately thinking about how you bring that down the funnel to really think about that conversion to sales. So I think a lot of people tend to think of it as this, let's create a partnership with an influencer. They're going to create some content, put it out on their own channel, and that's the end of the exercise. And And so for us, it really is about the partnership with the influencer and the extension that looks like across our media mix to really look at that ultimate, correlation to sales, because you won't always see it one-to-one if that's your track, right? So as you think about that extension and that opportunity of what you can do with that in terms of, content generation, in terms of paid media support, and as you think about things like sales lift and measuring, sales pre and post campaign, as you think about things like in-store traffic and partnerships, obviously those require integrations, of course, with things like Placed or, Place IQ. But really it is about how do you start to mature your influencer marketing beyond sort of that top of the funnel so that you can begin to really understand the sales correlation and ultimately that return on investment.
And I'd love to get your POV on this. So during the boycott, and some people are still in the boycott depending on where you are, but most people, it was a July, early August piece. We saw a lot of extension of influencer content into this digital OLV programmatic. Did you see a lot of that influence? Did you get the rights to that influencer content and put it in other places? Or did you always keep it on only social?
No, so I mean, we use influencer content across the board. So we do a lot of whitelisting. We do a lot of integration in terms of our own channels and distortions there. We're looking at holiday and how we leverage influencer content simply from even just a production standpoint, right? So as we think about production, logistics, and things like that, we've had such opportunities with influencer marketing to even look at a model like, content creation and creative production and sort of upending that in terms of the opportunity and potential there, and thus seeing larger amplification for ultimately a lower production cost as well. So an upside there as well.
Well, Christine, you know the space inside and out. It's really a pleasure for me to talk today, and hopefully those that are listening got it from the brand who knows it best. Work with influencers.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
This was awesome. Thank you both. I know that the Bose team is going to circulate all of the content and notes and videos internally as well. Like I said earlier, we're keeping this a consolidated program. We have part 2, the labs innovation demos, which are going to kick off at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So promptly in about 2.5 minutes. So a reminder for everyone on the Bose team, Marissa sent you guys an email with links to attend those. So please check those out. Huge thank you to Christine and Ryan. I saw, Christine just jumped off. Really appreciate you guys participating, all of our speakers. A big thank you to Pat and Marissa at Bose for bringing us in. I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. Reach out to us at Brand Innovators. We have live casts going nearly every day on all sorts of different topics, whether it's influencers, retail, CPG, but tons of other topics as well. We also host private virtual roundtables that you can get involved with, which are more of these closed-door peer-to-peer discussions. But, we're here. Brand Innovators is here for our community. So, again, we will see you guys in 2 minutes on the Labs Demo Day meetings. So please make sure you check the links and the calendar invites that Marissa sent out, and we will hopefully hear from you and see you guys soon. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day and week.